Hi, it's Matthew Dickson of mindday.ca. Welcome. I'm going to try to give you some mental health tips. I'm hoping that I can help you with your mental health. If you've got a mental illness, I'll talk about general mental health tips for whatever kind of mental health issue you've got. I'll talk about my experience with schizophrenia. I know there's a lot of people out there with the disease, with schizophrenia or psychosis, who might be looking for some guidance. I'll also talk about mental health in developing countries. That's a cause that I'm working on. So, verbal judo, it's what police officers use to deal with people, and it's made my life so much easier. There's some things you need to know about it. One is when you're approaching somebody, well, the reason I'm telling you this is because psychologists often say when people come in to see them and they talk about their problems, they often talk about the people in their lives giving them problems. And if you can decrease the people stress in your life, it can increase your chances of a successful recovery. So, just on that point, actually, some mental illnesses can be preventable. Lifestyle factors, like the way you live your life, how much stress you have in your life, can help prevent getting a mental illness further down the road. How mentally resilient are you? There's a field called positive psychology that was first created in the 90s by Martin Seligman, and he's got a TED Talk called "The New Era of Positive Psychology." Phenomenal TED Talk, one of the top ones I've seen that's really resonated with me. And positive psychology is how to make healthy people healthier or happy people happier. And psychiatry traditionally has tried to make miserable people less miserable. They bring them up to sort of a neutral, and positive psychology is on the other side of that, making happy people happier. So for verbal judo, that's helped me so much in dealing with people. So as a police officer, when you come on a scene, you have to take all the chaos that's happening, figure out what happened, and then eventually send everybody on their way with everything sorted out. Hopefully, that's ideal. And if you're talking to somebody and you think, that conversation just didn't go the way I thought it might. I don't know what happened there. I just don't know. So there's one thing is when people come at you with a tone of voice, they're not happy with you or the situation or something, and they can give you some problems. A lot of the times we rise to match that and rise we rise to match that rise in intensity, and it often doesn't work out. So number one rule is stay calm. Don't just try to keep your emotions level. What I do is I read somewhere that think of your emotions as in your chest, like a thermostat, and you're always trying to keep your emotions balanced and not get too out of control, not get too depressed or sad, and just try to keep it level. And I do that with my thoughts, with the tones of voice I use when I'm speaking to people, and just emotions around me. When you talk to people, there's always emotions happening. Everyone has their own emotions. Some people's emotions can overpower yours. That's why, in movies, sometimes we like having our emotions overpowered. Music makes us feel great. We can laugh and cry in at watching movies. It's wonderful. But sometimes we don't like the emotions that we take on from other people, and they really don't make us feel good at all. So watching people's emotions, but the most you can do is watch your own and just sort of try to monitor how you're sort of reacting to your environment around you. Maybe a news channel is on in the background talking about distressing news, and you're sort of half listening to it. Oftentimes, we don't even know why we feel the way we do. There's all these, like I said, like a news channel you're half listening to in the background. You don't, or maybe you don't even know it's on, and you're wondering, why am I sort of feeling down now? Well, that's sort of broadcasting some bad news right now. So staying calm. And the third rule of verbal judo is finding out where people are. Where are they? What's their state of mind? Where are they mentally right now? And you have to be able to read body language and have emotional intelligence for that. There's books on how to do that. For me, I just started paying more attention to that. I didn't have great emotional intelligence, and I wasn't great at reading body language in my younger years growing up, but I've gotten better at it, and a lot of it is just paying more attention to people. So find out where people are, And when you see it, you can see it in an instant. I can scan crowds and sort of get a glimpse in a second of sort of where people are. And it's not perfect. I don't know exactly what people are thinking, but you can get more of an idea. Some people might be more aggressive, wanting to have a fight with you. Some people might be needing a hug. Some people, you might be talking to them and they might not even be listening to you. Can you tell when people have stopped listening to you? Do you keep talking? I sometimes do, but I've gotten pretty good at just stopping talking. I'll stop talking in mid-sentence if somebody has stopped listening to me. I am just always watching where they are. So finding out where they are, and when you find out where they are, talk from their frame of reference. Don't talk from your frame of reference, so that you're step by step with them wherever they are. And if they need words of encouragement, you give that to them. If they need to be calmed down, you help calm them down. And that's 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 verbal judo. Those three things: staying calm, finding out where people are, and talking from their frame of reference. And a lot of the times in the verbal judo book, look at the book. If you go to my website minday.ca, there's a button called free tips, and there's a list of my top books, articles. There's a brain music CD there, or online. You can get it on your phone, not just CD. And I'm pretty sure you can get it on your phone. And it's my top articles. The book Verbal Judo is listed there. It's Verbal Judo: The Gentle Art of Persuasion by George Thompson. And he says most people, if people are out of control, a lot of the times, not all the time, he says sometimes you have to use force with people. They're beyond being listened to. But a lot of the time, the majority of people they're upset. They have no one to listen to them, and they're just tired and they're fed up. And if you can be that person to listen to them, to help calm them down, to help them get things off their chest, to vent to somebody, because they don't have anybody to vent to. Oftentimes that's the problem. Maybe it's your teenage son who doesn't want to take out the trash, and you get in an argument with him. Well, why is he upset? Well, there's reasons, and a lot of it is just staying calm and not reacting, and not and always coming from a place of concern, of care for the other people. In verbal judo, he says, as a police officer, you don't even necessarily have to like a person, but you have to respect them as a human being. And most people like and love their son, their kids, but he says you have to respect them. And everyone for the most part is doing the best they can. They're doing the best they can, and maybe they're not doing what we want them to do. They're doing the best they can, and we have to talk from their frame of reference. Find out where people are. Where are people? What's going on in their life? Conversations are rushed. So many times we just rush through conversations. There's a boat. I saw a documentary on a boat that went down to Antarctica, a sailboat. They did research there in the wintertime, which is unusual. Most people go to Antarctica for research in the summer. There's the Antarctic summer. And they spent the winter there. The crew on the boat, 20 people or so. They had a psychologist on board in case anybody was feeling not good, because there's long, dark nights there. And they said when they came back to Montreal, that's where the boat sailed from. They said they went back to the city, and they said everyone's talks quickly, moves quickly. Everyone's in a rushed conversation. Slow down. Slow down. Tom Hanks, when he was filming the Fred Rogers movie, Tom Hanks, this great actor, was talking too quickly. And they said, Tom, slow it down. You need to talk slower. Fred was slower than that. And Tom's like, wow, really? I thought I was going pretty slow already. No, slower, Tom. And I mean, that movie with Tom Hanks and playing Fred Rogers, it was like doing yoga. It was so beautifully slow and calming. And he listened. Fred Rogers in the movie, you see him listening to people and not skipping over parts of a sentence, not just assuming they know everything about one sentence someone said. He digs deeper into that sentence. And being heard by somebody is a real treat. To have somebody hang on your every word. How often do you do that to other people? How would you like to have someone do that to you? To hang on your every word, to not interrupt. And if you want to do that for other people, wait, count one. If they end a sentence, count 1, 2, 3, 4, and just wait. Sometimes people are done. They have nothing left to say. Sometimes people take a pause, and they take a pause because they're going to say something very profound. I just paused. Am I done? Am I going to say something profound? Pausing. It can work wonders. It seems like forever. You're wanting to jump into a conversation and say something. Just pause. Let people vent and talk about things that really matter to them. People, so many people are. George Thompson in Verbal Judo says people feel unheard, unseen, unrecognized. Verbal abuse is rampant, and tones of voice we use with people. Dwayne Johnson, in the pandemic, when the pandemic started in 2020, he was talking about having, his relationship with his wife, and he said it's all about tone of voice, the tone of voice you use. The tone of voice can give away things about how much you like a certain person. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we use tones of voice that we aren't even aware of that upset or irritate or make other people think that we don't like them. Our tones of voice. Roger Love, America's #1 vocal coach. He's coached Reese Witherspoon, all sorts of many other actors, Joaquin Phoenix, other actors and top musicians about how to use their voice to be pleasant, to make people like you, to communicate better. And he has books and voice programs that you can get that are phenomenal. And you start reading about the voice, there is so much to know about the voice. There's so much. And I've been working on my voice. It's not perfect, but I have improved it. And I try to watch my voice, my tone of voice, like I was saying earlier. I try to monitor my emotions, the tone of voice I use. The Survivor Personality by Al Siebert. It's a book I found in 2010, and I thought, man, I wish I had this book when I first started my recovery of schizophrenia in 1994. It's chock full of chalk. No, just kidding. It's chock full of great ideas, great things. He studied people who went through the Holocaust, through natural disasters, cancer, alcoholism, all sorts of things, and he studied how did you get through it? How did you flourish on the other side? How did that not beat you down for life? And he summarizes his findings from decades of studying people who've gone through those things in his book. It's one of my top books I recommend. Please read it. It's in my free tips list button on my website, mindaid.ca. There's another book called Post-Traumatic Growth. Well, there's a field of post-traumatic growth. It was created or discovered in the 90s, the same as positive psychology. That was in the 90s too. And a cruise ship disaster happened. Psychologists asked the survivors afterwards how they were feeling. Short-term afterwards, a lot of them were a mess, nightmares, flashbacks, all of them were a mess. Long-term after, some of them, not all of them, but a good enough percentage of them said, I feel better than ever. I feel great. Never felt this good in my entire life. And the psychologists were kind of scratching their heads saying, is this normal? It's the old cliche, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It was never studied. No psychologist had ever studied it until the 90s. It's that recent. And now it's a whole new field, post-traumatic growth. There's another field, which I can't find a lot of information on online, post-ecstatic growth. It's how to get growth without having to go through the trauma. Excuse me. It's post-ecstatic. For example, signing yourself up for a marathon, or learning a new language, or something like that. Something that pushes you, but it's not a horrible experience. For post-traumatic growth, there's a book. It's on my free tips list button on mindaid.ca. What Doesn't Kill Us, it's called, by Stephen Joseph, and he talks about how to get growth from trauma. And he says it's like a vase. A vase represents your worldviews. This is the way, when you get up every morning, this is what you can expect from the world. Everyone has their view of the world and what they can expect each day. sometimes what he calls a seismic event. It doesn't have to be from physical trauma. It can be emotional or whatever. It doesn't have to be from violence and or a car accident or something. It's a seismic event where your views of the world are shattered, and you say, "I had no idea the world could be like this." And my views were shattered when I got schizophrenia. I'd always known before then, in '94 when the disease hit me. I'd always known before then that the world is bad. I mean, the world is overall a good place. The world is overall a good place. Good wins out a lot of the time. A lot of the time. And I knew you could lose your legs. I knew you could go blind. I knew you could get cancer. I knew you could be in a genocide. But I had no idea what pain really was until I experienced it with schizophrenia. And with post-traumatic growth, he says, use reflective rumination. That's the key. That's how you get the post-traumatic growth. And so your worldviews, they're like a vase. The vase is shattered by this trauma or seismic event. People fall into three categories. They can leave the vase shattered on the floor. 20 years later, their life is still not good. The second group picks the vase up off the floor, glues it back together, and gets back to their original worldview. There's no growth, though. The third group, they pick the vase up off the floor, glue it back together, but they incorporate the trauma, the seismic event, into a new vase. They make a brand new vase. That's where they get the growth. And they do that by reflective rumination. That's what I did for years. And it's, yeah, I had an overwhelming desire to just sit there and think, to try to piece things together. It's like a puzzle, trying to figure out something, processing. And I would sit there and think, and I never hallucinated with my disease. I was in the 25% of people with schizophrenia who don't hallucinate. I had no problems with addiction. I was never homeless. I lived in a psych ward for in and out for a year and in a group home for 3 years. I always had a decent roof over my head, food, clothing, shelter. I always had that. I worked in a government office job for 20 plus years. Owned a home, owned a few cars over that period of time. But the pain was really bad. And I wanted to just sit there and think a lot of the time and just try to piece things together. And as I did that, every so often I'd have a little aha moment. And as I thought that, I'd get a little bit more clarity in my head. My head would be less foggy, and I'd get at the same time a little less heavy-hearted, more lighter emotionally. As I had that little thing, it's just neurons connecting in my brain that hadn't connected for years. And week by week, year by year, it improved one upon another. And now as of February 11th, 2021, my symptoms stopped. I'm still on medication. I'm not planning on going off it. You could say I'm finally managing my disease after 27 years, 28 years. But I pop a pill every night, try to live a healthy lifestyle, and I feel great. Mental health in developing countries. I've got my website, minday.ca, is the only website of its kind in the world. It's got all the groups helping with mental health in developing countries. They're vastly under-resourced and few and far between, but they do exist. I've got them all on one site. They're scattered across the web, but my website puts them all on one site. I'm proud of that, and I'd like more people to know about that, because I know there's millions of people out around the world. If they wanted to help someone in Africa get treatment, where would you go? How would you do that? Where would you start? Well, you can Google it, but I've got them all on one site. I would love if people shared my website and just said, look, here's a way to help. There's 7 nonprofits that I've got listed there under the donate section. You can donate to them. You can fundraise, put on your own fundraiser for them, and hopefully, I'd like to see that get more traction as the years go on. Thank you so much for listening. I'm hoping some of that will help you. I'm going to be doing more of these Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tune in. Thanks so much for listening.